Test. And you certainly want to test. Tested. There you go.
Power.
Very good. Thank you all for coming. This is Northport Forward Community Conversation. You've probably heard of our United Tours, but this is something to get the community together and share information on different subject matter experts. This event is sponsored by Loyalty Lawn and Landscaping out of Venice. You can find their information on our website. A little bit about Northport Forward, and then I'll turn it over to the utility department, who will go through a presentation, and then they will have a question and answer session for you, so you can ask all the questions you need. Okay? Northport Forward, we're committed to supplying information, factual information, so that our citizens are informed about what's going on in their city. They know where the tax dollars are going, and they know the direction of the city. Underneath all of that, we feel that it's important for all of us to have face-to-face conversations. We don't really do that a lot anymore, and we tend to lose some of the social skills. We tend to lose where, when you're hiding behind a phone or a computer, people call each other out, turn each other off, don't want to talk to them. But the idea of this is to share thoughts, share concerns and ideas, so that we can have a dialogue and we can come to a common goal, common fix to problem solve. And that's what this is all about. All of our meetings, that's the undertow of what we do, but it's basically to keep you all informed. So there's plenty of information on our website for future events. We'll talk a little bit about that after the Q&A session. But now I would like to turn this over to the Utilities Department, to the Utilities Director, Nancy Gallinaro, and I'll let her introduce our staff that's here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmine. Thank you guys for coming out. It's been, especially some staff of fire and police are here. It's really great because we don't really get to talk much about what we do. So we really appreciate the opportunity to just sort of highlight some of the things that we're doing right now. There's a lot. Utilities are very busy. You probably don't know, and you don't really see it unless there's a problem and you call and we show up at your house or something, but we're very, very busy. So my staff is here. Myself, Nancy Gallinaro. I've got Mike Lulo. He is the Assistant Utility Director over Operations and Maintenance. Mike Acosta, who is the Engineering Manager. And Andrew Hoppner, who is the Field Operations Superintendent. This is his debut as the speaker.
I only had 3 hours.
Right. We had to narrow him down a little bit. He's got a lot to say, so I'm very excited about that. So what we're going to talk about is, I'm going to talk about utility in action, give you a little bit of high-level administrative overview of what we're doing and why. Mike is going to talk about water quality and what we do to assure that your water is good, clean, and ready going out the door. Andy's going to talk about AMI, and I'll keep that a mystery until he gets up here. And Mike is going to talk about the future expansion, it's been a long day, guys, of water and sewer in Northport, which I'm sure some of you may be here specifically for that, to hear about kind of going septic and water, things like that. So, but you can see that we strategically placed some other interesting things first to keep your attention before we get to that expansion area. So utility of the future, which is really what we're striving for. The city is growing. I don't think anybody in this room doesn't realize that. So the utility has to grow as well. The utility has to be, it can't be what it was yesterday. What it is today cannot stay that way. We have to think about what we're going to be doing in the future. How are we going to supply water? How are we going to meet all of the new regulations? How do we keep up with technology? How do we make sure we have enough staff? Not overstaffed, because you're getting a lot of automation in the world today. So there's a lot to do to make sure that we're a utility of the future. So we have the adequate staffing. We're going to be a data-driven decision-making and planning utility. In this group that I just showed you, there's over 120 years of experience in utilities. I'm not going to show you where the bulk of those numbers come from. Might be me, or it might be Mike. But we have a lot of experience at this, and we've seen the days when we didn't have computers, and now everything is computerized. And there's so much information that we can collect, making sure that it's absolutely useful, and then using that data to make good decisions. Instead of like, well, the water plant guy, he's always right, so give him this pump, or just making decisions kind of willy-nilly, or not really having any information on whether or not you're making the best choices. Not looking at the sewer lines before you replace them, making sure that they don't have another 5 years of useful life, things like that. We're going to be implementing in our best management practices. We're already just doing business case analysis on large funded projects. If there's something that's coming in and it's $500,000, we take that and we compare it to other alternative ways of doing the same thing. Is there a less expensive way? And you start that process by saying, what if we did nothing? What is the cost? Well, the cost could be failure, it could be fines, it could be people without water. We don't want any of those things. So you kind of start there and you start to build from there until you've selected the project that makes the most sense economically and environmentally and socially. We're also doing risk-based prioritization. When we decide what needs to be repaired or replaced, we look at where it is, what can happen if it fails. Is it a pump station on a creek versus a pump station miles in on dry land? The one that's on the creek is going to cause the most damage because it would spill sewage into fresh water, which could cause all kinds of problems, right? So you start looking at what is the risk, what is the consequence of failure of that asset, and then you prioritize its repair, replacement, or rehabilitation accordingly. So we're already starting to do things like that too in our capital program this year. We're doing mostly desktop because data is still not where we want it to be, but we're getting started and we're getting used to the practices and the best management practices. Excuse me, allergies bad this year. Change management is a huge part of what we're doing. You know, we're a culture not unlike any other department that kind of coasted around through, kind of stayed in the 80s and 90s and then bam, growth. So we're all feeling the pressure. All departments in the city right now are feeling the pressure of change. And we've got guys that have been there for years. You know, they don't really like to use computers, but they're also the guys that know where everything is. They know where all the bodies are buried, they like to say, right? They know where all the pipes are in the ground. So we're taking people through a massive amount of change, but we're not going to leave anybody behind. We're starting a program I'm going to show you that really brings every single staff along through the process. So the next thing is the asset management and ISO certification for continuous improvement. Anybody familiar with ISO of any kind? Right, it's out there. Fire and police use certification. Ours is, excuse me, asset management, ISO 55001. And so we have already started. And we did this. Like, what the heck is that? This was a gap analysis. So before we want to start all these best management practices, before we start prioritization, most people are like, is she gonna be okay? I am. So before we do all that, we have to check out our organization. Are we ready for this? Can we really start doing this kind of technology and these kind of business practices on our staff? And for the most part, the answer is no. So if you look at 3 going all the way around, it's kind of a green circle. That's where we need to get to be certified. And right now, we're just sort of jagged in the center there. But we've already started to do the hard work to get ourselves out to 3. We've got our new mission statement. We've developed our strategic asset management plan. We've developed our policies. We're working on our record keeping. Our change management starts next month. All of these things are going to be going on for the next 5 years. So we're right now currently in year 1, setting our objectives. We will be going to commission for year 2. And that's really where you can see over here on the right, year 2 is pretty beefed up. There's a lot to do in year 2, a lot to do in year 1 too, but it's a lot of planning. But in year 2, we really start to set develop our framework, improve our asset data, really lay ourselves out for the future to make really, really good decisions. And we're bringing our staff all the way along. So I just wanted to give you kind of a high level, this is who we are. As I always run utilities as a business, and I don't plan to stop now. This is the way we have to do this if we want to make sure that we are stewarding the money that you pay for rates in a good way. It's very important to me. It's very important to my boss who just came in, Jason. And it's very important to our city manager. And it's very important to you that we do that. So it's a pleasure for me to be able to show somebody this for the first time. So I would like to hand this over to Mike, and he's going to tell you all about our wonderful water.
Oh, water everywhere. Not a drop to drink. Oh, who got the clicker? You got the clicker?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I gave you one.
Oh, boy. Does this come with instructions?
No,
All right.
got to point it at the computer.
This way, okay. Do it. Yeah. There you go. There we go, okay. All right, I'm Mike Vullo, Assistant Utilities Director, Operation and Maintenance. So I pretty much oversee the operation of the water treatment facilities, wastewater treatment facilities, collection system, and distribution system. We have 2 water treatment facilities in Northport. One is a 4.4 million gallon a day plant. The other is a 2 million gallon a day reverse osmosis plant. Our Myakkahatchee plant is a blended plant. It's surface water blended with RO water. So we have the 2 facilities, and these round things you see here and here are our ground storage tanks. They hold water. We currently have 8.25 million gallons of water storage for the city of Northport. We're using roughly 3.5 million gallons a day. Okay, that's my. Let me go to the next one. Some of the things I wanted to talk on is with our water quality, with our water in Northport, we use total chlorine. And we get a lot of people that we get phone calls and they say, well, I tested my water and you don't have chlorine in the water. Well, that's because they use the pool test kit and they test it for free chlorine. It's not going to work. Total chlorine is actually a mixture of chlorine and ammonia at a ratio typically 5-1. And what that does is it allows your chlorine to last longer in the distribution system. We have something here in Florida that is called weather, which is very hot, and free chlorine dissipates very quickly. So that most utilities in Florida use total chlorine. So that's one thing we always get phone calls about is you don't have chlorine. We do it. It's a disinfectant. Part of our water quality is our bacteriological sampling that we do. We pull 75 samples every month in the distribution system for compliance. We're regulated by both Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Health. We have to do all our reporting to them. They're both our regulatory agencies, so everything we do falls under their guidelines. The DEP administrative code is 62555 and 62550. And that's all permitting, operating requirements, staffing. That's how we run a utility for a public supply water system. Consumer confidence report. Speaking of water quality. Every year we come out with a consumer confidence report. It's basically our annual report, all our water quality samples, that we've taken for a year. There's usually a message from our director. So, and if you want to know about fluoride, if you want to know about lead and copper, if you want to know about our disinfectant byproducts, because we measure our THMs, HNA5s, because when chlorine reacts to something in the water, it gives off a byproduct. It's all in this report. This report, this is 2022, 2023 is coming out in July. So you can get it right on the utility website, from the city website, just click under utilities, go to water quality. This report is on there. It's even gonna have, if we have any violations. And lo and behold, we did have 2 violations. They were reporting violations. And it's reported, it's out there for everybody to see. So what happened is in October of 2022, I don't know if anybody remembers what happened September 28th that year. We might have had a little hurricane. And we took all our samples in the system. They just didn't get reported that month. So it was a month late being reported. So we did them, we just didn't submit. And our other is our fluoride. We missed that one. We had to catch up on that one. But needless to say, this report's going to tell you the good, bad, the ugly. It's going to give you the definitions of maximum contaminant level goals, MCL, maximum contaminant level, and it's going to tell you where Northport falls. It's going to tell you good, bad, or indifferent, because this comes from the state. That's where ours is right now. We submitted all our results to the state. They're verifying, checking all these numbers, and we post this out for public for everybody to see. So I'm actually gonna, yes,
I have a question. The bacteriological sampling, is that done from each plant, again, from both plants? Or where is it, where's the samples coming from?
they're representative throughout the system, the entire system. So it's everywhere for both plants.
Okay.
So it's actually right now, and we can push water from one plant to the other plant, or from the other plant back, back and forth. So, and with the RO plant right now in Welland Park, we've been actually pushing 2 million gallons a day out of that plant for about 6 months. So we've been maximizing that plant. It's all RO, reverse osmosis water. And we're doing a lot of tests. It's a new plant. It's a new plant, so we're doing a lot of testing, a lot of, we want to make sure it runs, and we want to make sure it's going to operate properly. So a lot of the water we have now is coming from the Myakkahatchee plant. I mean, the
Welland Park plant.
Welland Park plant, sorry.
That's why I asked the question.
One thing I did not mention that I wanted to talk about when it comes to water as well is our interconnects. We have 2 interconnects with Peach River Water Supply Authority. We have an allocation with them of 2.865 million gallons a day. So that's on top of our permitted capacity at the plants. We do have interconnects with Charlotte County. We have 2 of those, and we have 1 of them with Sarasota County. So we can wheel water between the systems. And for years before that plant was built in Welland Park, we would take water from Sarasota County for 6 months, and we would send water to Sarasota County for 6 months. So we wheeled water back and forth through the system, and it was beneficial as the regional water supply. And it was all ran through Peace River Water Supply and their contract. So, and it's all for water quality purposes. That was the dead end of Sarasota County system. So it helped them wheeling water back and forth. So, but I'm going to turn it over to Andy now. And Andy is going to talk to you about some very interesting stuff coming up, which is AMI. And I'm going to let him explain AMI.
Best part of this presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. I handle everything we do with metering. You're going to hear terminologies, AMI, AMR, and I'll let you know what that is. It has to do everything with our billing system and metering. I'm kind of a geek in that. I've been in it for 20 years. Started, I came down here a year and a half just before the storm from New Jersey. It's awesome. Don't want to do that again. At all. So,
Pointed at them. There you go.
You got to hold it up a little.
I gotta hold it up a little bit. See, you're not too good. All right, Mike. What'd you do, Mike?
Should go.
Okay.
You went, go on.
Really moving. So in Northport, we're embarking on a new type of metering system and billing system. Right now, up on the screen, you see AMI, and I'll talk about that in a second. Right now, we have AMR. It's automated meter reading. That's what it stands for, AMR. And that's currently the system we have now. And what that is it is a one-way talking system to the meters. We drive around in a vehicle and pick up reads, plus we do it manually. That's the technology we have right now. It's costly, it's time consuming, especially on the manual reads we do. So regarding AMI and the technology behind billing, it's the type, we're going to talk about AMR anyway real quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on that in terms of, I could talk for hours for sure on that. Type of systems Northport will be hosting, what we're doing right now, the benefits and the customer portal, which is the best part of this presentation is the customer portal on this. I have
You got it.
So AMI stands for, you have AMR, automatic, and this is Advanced Metering Infrastructure. They're just acronyms out there that defines the systems. So right now, just on the AMR, we have the meter out there. And right now, this is the AMI look on it. But right now, you'll see that where the base station is. That's a cell tower. But right now, we use the vehicle right now in place of that. We still go to the meter data through the utility billing right now. And then we go out and bill. Standard movement of operations for billing for meters. What we're going to be doing now is on the water meter, we're going to have a new meter type of system. Our system is quite old for the metering. Then we're going to go to a cell tower instead of drive-by. And then we're going to go into the meter data management platform. Everything's going to be on the cloud, which is good. And then we'll go to the utility building and then customer portal, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But this is the most exciting part of this whole metering AMI.
It's not big.
It is not behaving.
It's the one in the back.
Yes,
Oops, it's this one back here.
yep, right there.
No, I mean that computer that's on the table.
Oh, I'm hitting
That's
this
why,
one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thought that was the
They
computer.
didn't come with instructions, as Mike said.
Mine's,
That's okay. So
mine's not that smart.
that's okay. So the benefits, we talk about AMI, where we're going, the high level end of it. So the benefits to the customer, transparency, fair and accurate billing, enhanced services, which will be the portal, which will be good. Efficiencies, reduce and eliminate manual reading, including maintenance and labor costs. There's a lot of time spent reading meters. Out of the month where, 20, 21 days in a month, we read probably about 16, 17 days in a month, which is excessive, Now with the AMI, we're going to reduce that time rather quickly. And the fiscal responsibility, capturing lost water, that's important with metering, and state-of-the-art meter reading system. Like I said, we have quite outdated metering system right now. It's probably 30 years old right now. Still good, robust. It's a good system, but it's not moving up in technology where we need it. I just want to talk about building state-of-the-art meter reading. A portion of that is going to be with the meter we purchase. Right now, it's a meter. It's a lot of moving parts on the meter. It's like your car odometer reading. It just reads, as the water's going through it. The meter we're looking at right now in the whole system for the AMI, we're looking at a ultrasonic meter. Because when we're doing this, we're going to do it right, and we're going to do it build for the future. So the meters we have is a lot of moving parts. The resolution of getting, registering water gets only so far low. But we're going to go to an ultrasonic meter, which is going to be a meter that has no moving parts whatsoever. The resolution is going to get really, really low. It can get below a cup of water, and that's how far it can register, which does a number of things. It picks up leaks faster, more accurate reading. And not only that, the metering, all meters have a life expectancy. So the meters that we have now have a 10-year expectancy on life, basically, roughly around there. Because of all the moving parts and, things they don't break down, just like your car. But with the ultrasonic meter, there's a 20-year life on this. Like I said, no moving parts. It's done by radio waves, and it's very accurate. It's the newest technology you can buy out there. So that's where we're going with the meters. So we're getting a new AMI system, a new billing system, and a new metering. and we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna do it, the way it should be done. I got this one.
There you go.
Hey,
I knew you
hey,
were doing it.
sooner or later. So I want to talk about the customer portal because that's so important to us at this point. Because, the meter utility, we can usually get your bill and usually that's pretty much the communication. But now we're going to have a customer portal with this new meter. It's going to be fantastic. I can tell you that. The interaction the utility is going to have with the customer through mobile device, obviously, on your home device. And it's going to be great because you can really take charge of your water usage. You can see it, you can analyze it, you can do day-to-day operations, you can do week to week, month to month. You can set parameters in terms of where you think you should be on your water usage. Great tool. You can see if there's a leak. It'll tell you if it's a leak. It'll send you alerts. It'll do text message. It'll send you an email on all this information about the meter. So it's they call it smart meter, as everybody heard out there. It's very smart meter. But the portal is going to be a good communication tool between the city and the customers of the Northport. It's really going to make a difference. And like I said, I did some demos out and I did it. I was always in the AMI end of the world. So seeing this customer portal, and there's not a lot of companies want to invest in it. Because it's not, it's a good investment for communication between us and the customers. So, along with the new meter technology, creating efficiencies on everything with that, the new billing system. And again, we're going through this right now. We're building for the future. As Mike said, there's a lot of future growth going on, and we want to do it right the first time so it lasts us through 20 years. So we don't have to redo this in 10 years. So we're going to get double the life out of it. This is going to build continuously. Like I said, there's applications that just keep adding things, for alerting, notifying the customer. Bill pays on there. They'll have links there. You can pay your bill right from there. There's a lot of enhancements that will come about with the customer portal. I'm very excited about it. It's one of the things we looked at first. It was, what can we do? What kind of system can we get in with the customer portal? And then we kind of did backwards into the meter system and everything like that. So it's going to be a great system. It's going to be a new system. We're expecting it to happen sometime probably early summer. I don't know, summer down here is all the time.
That's already started.
This is July, all July. So we're looking to have our first meters in the ground sometime in July. And it's going to be a build out probably over 5 years. We can't do everything all. We have 27,000 meters in the ground, and we can't do all 27,000 at once because it's quite a bit. So we're going to do it over about a 5-year period before we build out. We're going to be able to handle our growth with no problem with it. And it's a reasonable system because other systems that you have to purchase, you have to get your own towers up. So you have to put towers throughout the township. But what you're doing now is you're using the cell towers. They use a different kind of, we look at it and say, some of the questions come out about, how is the data coming back? We know we have dead zones and stuff like that, but it's a different kind of, it's almost like a pager versus what we have on our phones with pictures and data coming through. So it's a different frequency. With our phones, it's LTE. The other one is LTM. So it's just quick data transfer. So there really is no dead zones or anything like that. So metering is real good. And I could talk hours about on this because I just love it. I really can and what it can do. And what's beautiful about the system too is, talk about the hurricane, what we went through is, what you can do is when this system is built out, you can do a snapshot of your whole system, of where you are in the reads. And once you do that, you have, before the hurricane and after the hurricane, because sometimes the data doesn't transfer and everything, but you can do a quick snapshot of 27,000 accounts and know exactly where everybody was at that time for reading. So it's just endless tools that you can do with the AMI. And it's going to get, real exciting for me, and it's going to be it's just nice for the city to get this type of meter system in there. Like I said, just to recap, the leak alerts alone for customers, you'll get that. You'll see it. You'll know if your toilet's leaking. You'll know if you left your hose on. You'll see that, and you can even customize that and set thresholds and everything like that. And you'll get a text. You can be away, and if something happens on a house, you'll know right away with those alerts that, hey, something, the pipe broke, there's running water, you'll be able to see that. And you call the utility up and will come and, minimize, the damage that could possibly be done. So a lot of exciting stuff on here, a lot of information. We're going to get it out. And once we start building the system, we'll get all the information out, how things work, the way things work. It's going to be a great opportunity for the city, and it's going to benefit the customers just as well. So, like I said, I can talk more, but surely I'm going to pass it over to, I believe, Mike Acosta's up. So I'll show you how to use this thing now.
You press the forward button?
Yes.
It's where you point it that makes all the difference in those.
Well, good evening. I'm Wink Fourth. I played baseball for a good chunk of my life. So I think I'm batting cleanup, but I'm also loud, so I don't know if I'm bringing up the rear. I'll go with the former. My name is Mike Acosta, utility engineering manager. I've been with Northport. Tomorrow will be 7 years. It's been a flash. Sometimes it seems like it's been 107 years, and other days it's like it's 3 days ago. Can you believe Hurricane Ian was 18 months ago? We lived that painfully for so long. Anyhow, so what do we have going on future expansion? I'm going to talk more than just water and wastewater expansion. As you guys know, Northport is a old GDU community with lots and lots and lots of platted lots. And lots of those platted lots don't have any infrastructure related to water and wastewater treatment. And that fact is driving the neighborhood expansion project, the one on your lower left. That's phase one. That's one sewer shed of 29 in the city. We did a study back in 2019, and 2019 dollars, it was about $1 billion project. That is probably just a bit more than that now. And so depending on the funding, it's going to take a while to build that out. But without it, Northport builds out with about 45 to 50,000 septic tanks, more than double what's in the ground today. And if you know a bit about septic tanks, you know some of the green canals over on the East Coast a few years ago. That's part of the issue with the nutrient loading that comes out of septic tanks. Some other projects that are ongoing. We have a 2024 looping project. It's really small print, but those are the latest streets. The way that infrastructure was built in Northport back in the day, somebody built a house, they ran the water main to it, they stopped right there. So there's a lot of dead ends. We've been closing those loops way before I came here. And we've just continued closing those loops over time. That's just the latest rendition. The bottom right one, a long project that's finally out to bid. Bids on April the 16th. We couldn't do it on April the 15th for many different reasons, but psychologically it was a bad day. But that's our utility administration building. If some of you know where we were pre-Ian, we were the old Public Works Armory. It was actually an armory back in the day. You would think that place was bulletproof. You wouldn't have been wrong. It has not been habitated since September 27th, 2 years ago, well, approaching 2 years ago now. And that's the new administration building. It's been a long slog to get here. The RFP for the design services went out in 2017. We had to acquire a site. We had to design the thing a couple times, and we're finally there. And hopefully the bids come in within budget.
So how are you paying for that?
I'm told I'm the engineer guy. So, I worry about plans and building stuff. And then I say, Michelle, where's the money? Michelle Tipp is our business manager. Actually, before we go out to bid, the money is stockpiled. That's the city policy on projects, is the money has to be quote unquote in the bank, budgeted, those kinds of things. So it's ready to go.
Could you identify the boundaries on the left side one?
Sure. See
They're difficult to see
okay, so let me,
I think that has a laser on it too.
ooh, my favorite things. Maybe you shouldn't have told me that.
Let's see if it works. Does it?
They'll put a cool,
Oh, look at that. So this is roughly the boundary of it. But the first project, or this is the entire sewer shed, the first one we're tackling. And that will take at least 5 years to build out, because that's roughly, and again, in 2019 dollars, $30 million.
that's Salford area, right?
Correct.
If I give the street now, am I seeing Southwood on the right and Sumter on the left? What am I seeing? What's
I think you're seeing Salford
In the middle.
in the middle,
in
correct?
the middle?
Correct. So it's kind of straddles south. And we purchased a lot there where
If I may, I can
go
go
ahead.
out here.
The vacuum.
This is Price Boulevard,
Yeah.
right along here.
Okay,
This is Southford Boulevard, right along here.
is that 75 up above?
No, that's the Snowbird Waterway.
That's, okay,
Right.
okay.
So it'll be a vacuum system, and so it's not the traditional lift stations that you maybe have seen around town, that's all we have today. These are enclosed, the wastewater is under vacuum, so it does not give off odor. If it does, bad things have happened. So. Wait, did I talk about all those projects? Oh, yes, I did. So some ongoing engineering studies that are ongoing. We finished the water master plan. We haven't finished it. We're still going through the last throes of it. Has not been presented to the commission. So it's not quite ready for prime time to close. So we're launching a wastewater master plan that'll do the same thing, kind of bring us up and project forward what we can expect to see over the next 20 to 25 years. And, that's a challenge in today's world with the growth that's ongoing here. Water supply study. You would think that there's plenty of water in Florida. When I first started I was 2 when I started in my career. I've been at this for, the downside of almost 40 years. Up in the Orlando area, the aquifer there, the Floridan, was a quote unquote inexhaustible supply. And somehow, within one career of mine, we've exhausted it. It's overpumped there now. So that's an ongoing issue throughout the state on water supply. If you know anything about Southeast Florida, Biscayne Bay's been that way for a long time. So water supply is a big deal in Florida, even though we get 50+ inches of rain throughout the state. It tends to run off mostly. Direct potable reuse, or let's just call it potable reuse, is the concept of taking the wastewater that comes out of the plant and bringing it back to drinking water standards or beyond. While it sounds crazy and revolutionary, if you've been in New Orleans, you've experienced it. Because St. Louis dumped their wastewater into the Mississippi and on upstream. That said, this is highly technical stuff. I sent an article out just before I left the office today. Charlotte, North Carolina just turned some reclaimed water into beer. And that always gets everybody excited. We can do that? Yes, we can. Anyway, this is going to happen in Florida because it has to in some places, the Central Florida area. Northport, we have a feasibility study to see if it can be done here, and if so, what's the best treatment technologies for the future. It's not imminent.
Have anybody thought about desalination, being that we're a peninsula surrounded by water?
It is, we have, and there are some of those around. And the RO plants that we have use brackish water, they're wells. They're not quite seawater. Seawater is incredibly expensive to treat.
Yeah.
For every gallon you put in, you get about half a gallon back. And the other one is highly concentrated, salty water that goes out. So efficiency wise, it's about 50%. Our plants that are using a different type of technology and it's slightly less salty water are getting about 75 or 80% back. So that's what we try to do. So desalination is theoretically possible. Technically, it's possible. It's wholly expensive. This is actually, we currently take our wastewater after it's treated, irrigate lawns with it in some areas. The rest of it goes down to the injection well. That's 2,500 feet deep.
As an engineer, do you ever look at what the water resources are that are available and what the population it can support?
That's not the way Florida works.
I know that. I know that because you're an engineer. So I mean, at some point in time, you're like, oh my God.
Correct.
It's
No, no, the short answer to that question is exactly how it should be done. And, from an engineering perspective, you would put the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant in the middle of the city because it's a spoke and wheel thing and everything would go out. But that's not what we do. We put it out here and the city's over there because nobody wants to live next to it. It's exactly right. So we do a lot of things from an engineering perspective. They're not the best from an engineering perspective. But in Northport through, the plant that Mike showed, the first part of it was built in 64. The second one in 74. So that's the surface water portion of the plant. So that's relatively old technology, still works great. It's cheap to treat. And so you can, it works. Will it work if we get really low limits on certain things? Maybe not. In my career, and Nancy, I'm going to put Nancy in the same boat as me on this one. We have seen the regulations driven lower and lower by our ability to measure stuff lower and lower. Not saying it's a bad thing, it's just the way it is. And, I'm going to talk about the last one on that list is lead and copper rule revisions. Lead and copper came up a long time ago because we used lead primarily as solder in Florida. But in other parts of the country, there's lead service line. We don't believe that there's any lead service lines, but we're going to be finding out over the course of the next 6 months here if we have anything that needs to be removed, changed, those kinds of things. But Flint, Michigan drove that in a huge way, much faster than the normal regulatory process would. Did I miss one on there? Well, the future development areas in the wastewater that you saw the first one of 29 total. So here's some projects that are actually where the rubber meets the road being installed. We have 2 projects, I-70, Toledo Blade and Sumter, both taking water and wastewater mains out to and beyond I-75. And the amount of interest, especially in Toledo Blade, the word unbelievable is way too nice of easy of a word. It's astronomical out there, what the interest is out there. We have some treatment plant projects. We have Southwest Reclamation Facility drying bed. That's not very exciting. Mike and Andy's guys are out there pump things out of the wastewater lift station that probably shouldn't have gone down the drain, but they did. And they're big chunky stuff. And that drying bed will dry them out. We'll be able to put them in a dumpster at landfill. The structural improvements at the water treatment plant, that's finishing up. It's been a long process on that one. About $5 million in total spent on that. And that was rehabilitating significant portions of that 64 and 74 water treatment plant, hopefully to carry for another 40 or 50 years. And what you're seeing there is construction. I believe that's Toledo Blade, but don't quote me.
It's Sumter.
Sumter? Sumter, Toledo Blade. I see it from the side of the road. It doesn't look like that. And these are just some pictures of the water main at Toledo, water main and force main at Toledo Blade and installation stuff. If you've driven out there, you've seen it. Same thing on Sumter. See how you can't tell the difference? At some point, pipe is pipe, right? The structural improvements I mentioned, the area view, there's that plant, if you look bottom right corner, kind of sort of doesn't look like it's 50, 60 years old. There's been some of the stuff was really well taken care of, and other stuff we fixed. And some of the stuff was done on nickel and dime, and we're fixing that as well. But that project actually, the final walkthrough is 24th of this month, so in a couple of weeks. And that wraps it up, and I think we'll all entertain questions. But I can talk about AMI if you want me to sit down.
For just a minute. I think that's a good question, and I know a lot of people are asking that question about water. You know, will we have enough water? Are we watching the water? And the answer is absolutely we are watching the water. We know how much we've committed to, we know how much people are looking for. As Mike said, Mike Vulo said that we have Peace River that is, we're in conversations with them on whether we want to take more water there. We have all our interconnects, we have our surface water, we have our well water. We can expand the treatment plant at Wellen Park, and as you know, that can supply universally. It's not just for Wellen Park. We're all one big family. We're also doing a source water study. So we've talked about the water sources that we know, but we have a contract that started actually the last couple of weeks to look at the water we don't know. You know, we talked about, we have all this rain. Well, where does that go? You know, why are we saving that? Why don't we have reservoirs? Why do we have a way of storing it, recharging our aquifer? We're going to be looking at that because we can't, just like everything else, we can't just sit on today and not think about tomorrow. That's irresponsible. So we are doing that in force. It's very, very, very important to our utility and to the city right now to be looking at all the potential water sources for the future.
Are we impacted by mosaic mining?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer for. Do you?
So we've done, I've never used a microphone.
I know.
But anyhow, when Mosaic started to do that, we actually did some water source study, actually through Public Works. Did some water source stuff upstream of where the slough would come into the city. So we know what that base water looks like without their mining operation. To date, there has been no impacts that we are aware of. Doesn't mean that they won't be in the future, you know.
Like if they make it through DeSoto County, then are we worried?
From a continuation of mining.
Contaminated.
Oh, if it gets into the water courses, it's very difficult to stop until it passes through. So yes, we would be very concerned with that.
But we're not now. We don't have it.
Correct. There's no issue today. And they've got some rigorous monitoring requirements through their permits.
So we're talking about septic and drinking water, but a lot of the citizens don't understand that there are higher powers that we have to pay attention to, which are county and state and federal. So we're kind of in a situation now where the septic tanks, things are going to change in 25 with septic tanks, from what I heard. And they're going to go to the aeration system versus, yeah. And so that's going to change some things for a lot of people, and they need to be prepared to pay for their septic as they're using it, like you would your water bill. Because when you go to replace that later on, that bill's going to be from anywhere from old price of about $9,500 to $24,000. And they need to be prepared for that. And I think it's an educational piece that you guys are going to have to back up, but it's not implemented by us either. It's higher powers. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the information that I've seen the most recently, and the septic tank regulation went from the Department of Health to the DEP. There's no question where that was headed.
Right.
What that means for the septic tank industry is that it's going to be more rigorous. It's going to be tougher. The advanced or the aeration treatment units, I think we love acronyms in utilities. They're ATUs to us.
All right.
They right now only required, at least from a Northport perspective, in the areas that are right on the water. And there's some up and down Hillsborough that I'm personally aware of. But we don't get into the septic tank business. Not what we do. We do big giant. In essence, what an HU is a miniature wastewater treatment plant with nobody operating it except for the homeowner. The homeowner turns off the aeration pump. You know, think of your aquarium. It's a biological system in there. If you turn off the aeration pump to your aquarium, in short order, your fish are all dead. Well, there's no difference in that ATU.
Okay.
And the monitoring of that ATU is the real issue on the longer term basis. So if you have in Northport, 20,000 of those, as an example, who's monitoring those? The DEP doesn't have the manpower or the horsepower to make that happen. So that's really, in my personal opinion, maybe my professional opinion as well, not the answer. The answer is centralized sewers on a quarter-acre lots area. If you have 5 acres, no issue. You're not gonna do it. We have, on 5 acres, we have 20 lots. So that math doesn't work on a scale of Northport. If you had one of those, that's not a problem.
Right.
You know, so that's why it hasn't been a problem. Northport, until relatively recently, was a sleepy community. Not so sleepy anymore.
Not at all. Not at all.
Not so sleepy. So, you know, this is a long-term project.
It is.
It was highly controversial at the beginning because the report has, it's gonna cost $30,000 roughly to get water and wastewater in the lot. It was never our intent that the homeowner was gonna pay $30,000 to get water. If you're building a brand new house, maybe, but if the existing folks, no.
Well,
I think that's the position of the commission, and I think that what's codified in our current ordinances show that.
Well, I liked how you verbiage that, because when this was brought up, people went out and they're sitting on street corners with their petitions and overreacting instead of getting educated before they reacted and understanding the process. Because the process, it's just like the police building now. It's a conversation to get things moving in the right direction for the future. And that's kind of what this is too.
And well, the part of it is, in some areas of the state, it's driven by regulation and the Clean Waterways Act from a couple of years ago now.
Sure.
Where, you know, the Silver Springs and some of those springs areas where their nutrient loads over. And I had a professor in college that did the initial nutrient stuff in Silver Springs, and you could see over his, you know, like, stay connected to his research over 20 years. He personally stopped doing it. And you can see those nutrient loads go up, and that's what drove some of this stuff is the springs. There's a significant amount of, not significant, in the legislation session that just ended, I think that there's $55 million for alternative water supply stuff. And this is starting to fall into an alternative water supply. So the water management district is starting to give grants, and DEP's giving grants. We're not in the highest priority area yet,
We will.
but we will, because Charlotte Harbor's downstream.
Sure.
What percentage of people in Northport are on city water versus well water?
I don't know that I can answer that question.
It changes every day.
So if you just do kind of generic, or let's do
I mean, I'm not gonna.
big time math, we have
50.
Andy said 27,000 customers.
Right.
So let's multiply that by 2.5. Okay, multiply by 2 is easy, right? 54.
Yeah.
The half is harder. So roughly, and then there's what, 90,000 people in the city? So better than 50% at this point.
Okay, that's not, what do you think is are there gonna be issues with people on well water? I know you're not dealing with providing people with well water, groundwater to their homes. Especially when you said the aquifer in Orlando is probably pretty much depleted.
It can happen if you don't have a guarantee. When you're on the water system, you're buying capacity into our system.
That's correct.
When you have a well, you don't know. Sometimes you have to go deeper to get better water. And I was in Wilmington, North Carolina in the early 2000s, and we had to take pretty much all of New Hanover County that wasn't on the water, oceanside, off of the wells and onto a nanofiltration plant because they just didn't have any water left for their wells. So it's just, I'm not saying that that's a situation you're in because I don't know,
No, I
but
understand.
it's risky, so.
So right now you have 50% of the people in the city are well water that you have no clue how long it's gonna last. And then we're bringing in more people and drilling more wells. That's scary.
Yeah.
So and just a little bit of broader background, those individual water wells are not regulated by anybody except the Department of Health when they're drilled. And that's it. Nobody
Yeah.
ever pays
Yep.
any attention to them anymore. Water Management District doesn't pay any attention.
Right.
If you've been around the Sarasota area for a few years, maybe more than a few, say 10 or 15, maybe 20 now, and remember the droughts in the early 2000s to the mid 2000s,
Right.
which sounds like ancient history somehow to me. There were people in the Osprey area, just up the road from here, that had 250-gallon tanks plopped down in front of their houses by the county because their wells went dry.
Went dry.
And you can't drill them fast. There's not enough well drillers in the area to go deeper faster, fast enough to alleviate that issue. The county ultimately brought water mains down there at high cost, but they also haven't been out of water since. And what I know, the little bit that I know about the hydrogeology of Northport is the water quality that underlies Northport is not great water quality from a well homeowner standpoint. I mean, the wells right down the road from here that we have are in the 200, 250, 300 foot deep range. They're brackish water already, so they're salty. They're in the 3,000 total dissolved solids.
Yep.
I almost said TDS, but I caught myself.
I'm working on the acronym.
So TDS is really simple to explain. When you get home, pour a spoonful of salt in your cup of water, stir it up, you just create a total dissolved solids. That's all it is. It's the salt that's dissolved in the water, along with a bunch of other things that are dissolved in there. But that TDS is high, so I've gotten, over my 7 years, probably 100 phone calls over that. So not a lot, but not insignificant, where their water quality is terrible. And they have an RO system. They spent $15,000 just to treat their water. Their fixtures, if they don't have it, their fixtures rot out in 2 or 3 years. All those kinds of things happen on wells, and people discount that on a macro scale because they don't live it every day. The people that are on the drinking water system discount it because it's too expensive. And it is what it is.
We would love to give everybody water.
Right.
Not give, it's expensive. We would like to be able to distribute water.
And one thing I did not mention, and my apologies, the neighborhood expansion project that is driven by the wastewater side also includes bringing water to those places that don't have it.
So you normally bring drinking water in at the same time you bring in sewers.
I'm sorry?
For them, we do.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
And if you were in a normal subdivision today, if you're expanding it, you have to do it. It's the law these days. But it wasn't in 1972 or 3.
Do you have extended plans in terms of, we're gonna bring in septic and sewer, sewer and water in here in 25 and
That's your-
section 26, do you have?
So the Giffords and Webster report, master plan report from 2019 had those 29 sewer sheds. Those 29 sewer sheds were ranked by density at the time. And the city commission chose to go to the most densest part because the most bang for their buck on removing septic tanks off of the system.
Yeah.
So yes, it was density driven then. I'm sure that's changed in the last 5 years.
Everything changes.
Correct.
Is there a place you can go and find that plan?
Yeah, it's on the city's website.
Okay.
It's on the utilities website.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. The city, yes.
City's website, utilities section.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So we looked at the new plant, which is phenomenal, and we're pushing a lot of water out of there. The old plant does a phenomenal job for what it was. 2 questions. Where's the next location going to be? And how are we going to update the old system to bring it more current?
So, 2 things, multiple answers on that.
I'll sit down on this one. It's gonna take a minute.
And we need to bring Andy back up on it. No, to the extent the surface water plant today meets all of the Safe Drinking Water Act stuff, everything that foreseeable in the Safe Drinking Water Act with alone exception. You guys have heard of PFAS and PFAS, and if you want me to go with that acronym, I can do it, but it doesn't mean
I'll
anything.
never remember it.
Perfluoral.
No, no, no.
Perfluoral.
Forever chemicals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are the forever chemicals. And the forever chemicals are incredibly difficult, I would say, without really high-tech stuff, impossible to take out. So what you do is you don't blow them apart. You don't decay them. You don't do anything to them except remove them by sticking them to something or remove them physically with a barrier. RO will take them out. So that part of the Myakatchee plant is ready for that. The surface water plant can't do that. It would have to get granulated activated carbon vessels, and it could treat that. So, but you know, what comes after PFAS, I mean, those things have been around since the 60s, and they only became an issue. When did they get in the news? A couple of years ago, right? They've been an issue for 60 years, but they just became news.
Okay.
So, I quit predicting stuff a long time ago, what the next regulation is going to be, because I just don't know what it is. It's whatever grabs the fancy or whatever at the moment. And I'm not discounting it because they have health consequences. So the existing plant as a surface water plant with the traditional flocculation sedimentation, ancient technology, works great, cheap to operate. So as long as water quality in the creek sustains, it can treat it without much of a problem. If you want to multiply that up, it's difficult because it's got a huge footprint. You saw the footprint.
I did.
Those clarifiers are enormous. You can put 10 times the capacity from a treatment standpoint in membranes and ROs, and Nancy mentioned nanofiltration, ultrafiltrations out there. There's a lot of membranes. RO is the one that is the highest end, but there's stuff from down here all the way up there. So we can do what the surface water plant does with membranes. Gives a byproduct you gotta get rid of, and it ain't cheap.
Okay.
I was quoted one time, and it has stuck to me somehow. Somebody asked me about the neighborhood expansion project, and I said, it's not a cheap date. And it's not a cheap date. Neither is replacing the plant.
Well, and as far as like a new location for a new plant, I know we're gonna have to look at that, and that's gonna have to be a part of the conversation of growth wherever it is. But that plant itself, would that be something that, like Welland Park's plant, would be built to kind of offset some of this plant and keep this plant more firm in usage?
Potentially in the, way before my time, the city acquired about 100 acres up there in the Toledo Blade I-75 Panacea area. So there's 100 acres out there. It's got wetlands and some other stuff. So there's some challenges to building on it, but that could be a potential location for a future water treatment plant. Water and wastewater, or wastewater.
Part of our source study.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is part of the source study. And, you know, we've done some stuff with the wells here. The wells that we have now they have high chlorides, and the TDS is continuing to increase. As I explained what TDS was. They've kind of started to level up. They continue to go up, and we did a groundwater, surface water study, and we do not expect that to get better. So to get quote unquote better water quality, the suggestion was to go inland further. Or, as somebody mentioned, desalinate, which is in essence what we're doing to a large extent, just not to the seawater. We're not the Navy that throw it in, suck it in from this side and discharge it to the other side. That discharge has issues from getting rid of it. You can't just put it back where you got it from.
Okay.
And that's what gets expensive.
Anything else?
I did not eat the hog this whole time.
No, you did good.
Do you add fluoride to the water, or is it just naturally there?
We do not add fluoride. So whatever fluoride's there is there naturally.
There's naturally occurring fluoride in the water.
Yep.
It's recommended that it's 0.7 parts per million. Not to exceed 0.7 parts per million. Our naturally occurring is 0.35. So we're within the realm that we don't need to have fluoride.
So fluoride is an interesting thing. It's highly controversial for unknown reasons to me, but it's also, a small amount is really good for dental stuff, and a large amount rots your teeth out. With that, I'll give it back to you.
Mike always
Nice
has
job.
a singer. I did want to, Carmine had asked me to mention this and I forgot when I was talking, but if you ever want a tour of one of our plants, or if you have a group of people that want a tour, our guys and gals love to give tours. They're very proud of the work they've done and do every day. And the older plants are hard to keep up, but they do a wonderful job. And they do love to show people around and talk about what they do. So just give us a call at Utilities and we'll get you set up. The plant well in the park is pretty cool to see. It's small, so you don't have to go up and down stairs and across tanks if you don't want to do that. But the technology is really cool. So if you want to get up there and see that, they're open to you. And, want us to talk to an HOA or whatever. People don't generally, like I said earlier, they don't recognize us until something goes wrong and then they're like, where's that utility department? But we're doing a lot of cool things and we'd love to keep talking about it. So just let us know.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn you over to our chairman of Northport Forward to say a few words. Walter.
Thank you, Carmine. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to especially thank the Utilities Department for putting together this wonderful event. I think it's educational. I was hoping that the number of people that said they were going to come actually showed up, but that doesn't surprise me lately. But most of the events that we've had pretty good turnout. I just wanted to mention briefly, we have our first fundraiser is coming up on April 3rd. It's a situational awareness safety workshop is being put on by Damsels in Defense. And it's being done on April 3rd at the Mullet Center. Am I correct? Yeah, okay. And then the next event after that is on April 16th. It's another Northport United Tour event. And that's being held at the Shannon Library in Northport. And that way we gathered the city manager and commissioners and a whole bunch of key people, including the police department, wonderful police department and fire department. They will answer any questions that any of the citizens have also. We're thrilled that we're able to pull these kind of events off, and we love working with the city in doing that, and other entities throughout the city of Northport. Just to remind people, we are non-political, and our goal is to inform, educate, and inspire the citizens of the city of Northport. And we're always looking for help in fundraising, because when we put these events, you're drinking some water and having some little snacks over there. That does cost money, and we need to get funds and do that. And we're also looking for help on committees that we have for our not-for-profit. We are a not-for-profit organization. And if you're interested really in getting really involved and becoming a board member, let us know. Okay. Again, thank you very much for coming, and safe trip going home. Have a good night.
I volunteer for you. I've seen you before. Yeah, I took a tour.
Isn't it?
That's about stuff.
And they really are proud of